Uh, I'm
Yep.
gonna I'm gonna do a little switcheroo. Let's talk about the Batman since the four of us watched that together, and
The Batman.
we're actually doing good on time, more than I thought considering. Um, yeah, we watched the Batman when it came out in like the beginning of March, and now it is the beginning of April. So goes to show you how much time has passed. I really like this movie. We went with like a group, and like only me and Joe, I feel like walked out liking it. But over time, like I know some of the big detractors thought about it some more, and they were like, "Actually, I did like that movie." So
Because it's a good movie.
it might be a grower. Actually, yeah, Bradley also liked it. What was everyone's experience with the movie?
Uh,
I walked out of it thinking that was okay, and then by the end of the night, I was like, actually, you know what? It's a pretty damn good movie. There's just a few things I would really, really, really want to change.
I walked out of that movie thinking like that was really good, and I really, really liked it. I just think it was way too long.
Yes.
I like that movie so well. I'm gonna watch it again, and when I
Holy
watched
fuck.
it again, and I felt like that movie was very good. It's just too long.
I haven't rewatched it. I walked out thinking it was very good, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "Oh no, that was excellent." I think this movie really rewards you for giving a shit about the story and thinking about it.
Yes.
And
Which Batman fans will not do.
no,
You're right.
Batman fans are probably a little more
Yeah, they're actually probably better than the average bear.
average bear. I know Tyler walked out saying that was a comedy.
Oh yeah.
The movie was really funny.
It was funny.
It had like a dark humor that I think people were like, "Oh, the movie has no humor." It's like, no, there was some. It wasn't like
fair.
Marvel quippy humor. And
Yeah.
I think that was a
No.
nice,
There
like,
was some
refreshing.
straight up genius comedy levels in that movie. I forget the part that made me laugh so much too, unfortunately, since it's been a while.
I think one of them was the thumb drive joke. That's the one everyone brings up.
That's a great.
But there was another one that Tyler did say that also because it was like a cut. It was like a like Bruce or Batman was doing something, and as the scene was transitioning, it was playing like a radio broadcast. That was really funny for some reason. I don't.
I think it was when he kisses Catwoman. It like started doing this random radio broadcast that was like monologuing the kiss or
It was-
something. And
It was like
what?
monologuing about Thomas Wayne, and then it transitions into like a thing about Thomas
Yeah,
Wayne.
it's like, my name is Thomas Wayne and I approve of this message.
Yeah, that's right.
It was his son kissing Catwoman. I'm like, yo, this is the funniest shit ever.
That
Why
is
is
a good
nobody
bit.
laughing?
So like the take that this movie's too long, and I need to rewatch it. The thing is, I think every scene was really purposeful.
I
I
often-
struggle to like even my least favorite scene. Well, except for the Joker scene, I think everyone can agree that scene could be cut. It's not
Yeah.
like necessary, and it's just like the studio put that there for sequel bait.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I really hope the Joker is not the villain. Like, it's cool if the Joker is a minor character in this trilogy. I want them to do new major villains. Like,
I agree.
a lot of
I'm
people
also
have brought
looking
up.
more at that.
Yeah,
I
go on.
think every scene was very purposeful except for that one scene. It's just like I think the second go around, because I like first time I watched it, I was very engrossed in this movie. Like I was all in it. I want to know where it's going. I want to know what this mystery is. I'm really into it. When I watched the second go around, and we're gonna talk about probably a bit of spoilers in this, but like
Yeah.
the second go around when they introduced the concept of Thomas Wayne being dirty and corrupt, I think is for me when the movie starts to really drag, because all of that plot gets resolved within like 10 to 20 minutes of it being introduced. Does that make sense?
I mean, how is that a drag? Like, the next scene goes right into it, and then they immediately go after Carmine.
It's not just like that. It's they introduce the Thomas Wayne thing, and then Alfred gets blown up, and then he goes and confronts Carmine Falcone, and then he sits there talking to Alfred, and then Alfred talks to him about his dad, and it's just like there was not enough time for that plot thread to kind of marinate and grow and like stick to you.
But that's
It's just
that's looking like one layer deep, because those scenes also serve, especially the one in the hospital. Yeah, they're talking about that, but what that scene really is Bruce realizing that he still has weakness in him, that he still has fear, not about himself dying because he's emo brooding Bruce, but about losing someone he cares about. And that's really important to understand why he goes a little ballistic near the end of the movie, where he's like, "Oh shit, Selena's gonna die."
Yeah.
And I've very recently realized that I don't think I would handle someone close to me dying very well. I clearly still have that humanity still left in me.
and you're right.
Like,
But I
everything's doing a double duty, where it's like, it would be weaker, I think, with some of these things that people say could be removed.
And what I'm saying is that I don't think it should be removed. I think it should be rearranged in some way. Like have the Alfred attack be a little bit sooner and have him deal with something while he's like thinking about that, and then come back to it later. Because to me, it's like you're resolving all of this in one go, and we've kind of like we've taken a slight detour from the plot before we get back into it. So that to me is where it dragged at that point, and then everything else after that I think is fine and great. But that to me is like the tar pit of the movie.
Why didn't they arrest Penguin?
Yeah, that's also a plot hole.
So no, the reason why they
is also right, and I agree with, but it's kind of silly.
like the reason they can't arrest Penguin is because at that point they're not working together. Like they're going outside the bounds of the law
You
by
know
still
what?
working together. Because
Yeah,
Batman is a vigilante who probably did cause a shitload of damage during that car chase. So
That-
he can't
that
be
would
like,
be-
"Hey, look what I did."
and it would be like a fair knock against the movie. It's like that car scene was way too wild, but also it was fun. So
Yeah.
we'll forgive it. But like at that point in the movie, Bruce had already done the thing at the police station, so now he's not actually working with the police force anymore. So the fact that he's still working with Gordon, you'll notice they stopped meeting at the Bat Signal from that point in the movie, because at that point they have to meet in like alleyways and still keep their
yeah.
investigation going. So all the thing with Penguin, it's like, well, we can't formally indict him and take him in because I can't let them know that we were working together, because that's gonna stop our investigation prematurely, because I'll get fired.
Yeah.
So like, if there's reasons for stuff. What I really like also is like the story of the movie. Like, I don't know, but there hasn't been a superhero movie with like a story this good for me, because it's very character driven. In a lot of Batman movies, the highlight is always on the villain and how the villain pushes Batman to act. And while that's the thing in this movie, you're spending so much time with Batman. He's in almost every scene.
Oh yeah.
And notably, you're spending the time with Batman.
Not
Bruce
Bruce Wayne.
is deliberately very muted in this movie because he is the mask that Batman puts on, and this movie shows that the best. He's like a weird kid who doesn't even go outside, has to put sunglasses when he goes to his living room because he spends all night in a fucking cave.
super pasty.
He's pasty and weird and wears eyeliner. I think it's such a cool take on Bruce Wayne, but I think it's especially good because of what this movie says the future might be for this character.
Yeah.
The Bruce Wayne who's the philanthropist, who's the playboy, is the character who this character is going to become after he realizes that he needs to be better for Gotham, which the whole theme of the movie is that the Batman project is not working. They start the movie with like this very praised scene where it's showing the bat signal and how villains and like criminals in the streets are scared of it. But notably, like Bruce starts with that monologue, it's like, I've been doing this for a year, crime's worse than it's ever been. I have this signal, they're afraid of me, they think I'm in the shadows, but I am the shadows. But they think he's in the shadows, but note that none of the crimes are stopped by the signal. All the criminals get spooked, and then they still complete the crime and get away with it. Like the bank robber, the taggers who are tagging the buildings. Very deliberately, it's spooky, and they're like, "Ooh, is he over there?" Like, it causes paranoia, but it's not stopping people yet, because the point of the movie is that this plot for vengeance and this like embodiment of vengeance is not enough. You have to be a hero, and it's cool how the movie organically builds up to that. It's like how like superhero movies have gotten so grand that like it really feels stripped down, where the movie's teaching the hero how to be a hero, and not in like a, oh, they need to unlock their Captain Marvel powers, or like he starts off in a place where he's saving people, but he's not really inspiring confidence or being the hero that Batman tends to be in a lot of stories. So it was very cool getting to that end point.
And he's not even like saving people. Like there's the scene really early on where like he beats up like the Joker gang thugs.
Yeah.
And you get a clear indication that he did it less to save this guy and did it more to punish them for doing it.
Yeah. It's very important, because the first thing we see Batman do is beat up a bunch of dudes, and then the Asian guy on the floor is like, "Don't hurt me." He doesn't see them as a hero. He's a terrifying psychopath who's like, he might turn on me next. I don't know what his deal really is. The last thing you see in the movie pretty much is Batman carrying the Asian woman to the stretcher, and she won't let go. She's so comforted by him, like, carrying her, that she's, like, holding his hand, and it's like on a nice parallel to him, Alfred, and him holding hands. So, like, they use that nice inversion of that first saving moment in that last one. And, God, the movie's so well directed. I think about those shots all the time. The scene of Batman looking shitty and grimy, looking up into the sky in broad daylight, is something that sticks with me heavily. Like, that is such a cool imagery for what this kind of Batman is.
I just really liked. I think this is the best depiction of a Gotham that, to put it as Cosmonaut Marcus once said in his video, there probably is no other fucking solution than Batman for Gotham.
They painted a Gotham where it's like, yeah, he's their only hope when you get down to it.
Like, and I rewatched The Dark Knight after we saw this movie, and Dark Knight's still a very good film, but very much what I missed was the feeling of Gotham just being a shitty place. Because you look at that movie and everything's like is clean and shiny and very pristine, and it's just hard to picture that as a place where a bunch of crime is going on, you know? But here, like, Gotham like feels like a cesspool. Like, it feels like just garbage has been poured into this city, and it's just filthy everywhere you go.
And so much of the movie is in dark and rain, you know, like it's so grimy. And also, like, Batman opens with the "I am the shadows," but in the end of the movie, he's literally a leading light with the flare, leading people from darkness. It's like, it's so thematically rich and so well directed. Like, it's just a good fucking film, man.
While I was watching that scene, I was like, people aren't gonna get it.
Yeah.
I was like, even while I was liking it.
It's
like,
definitely the scene where it's like, this is a good movie, but that's the scene where it's like, oh no, I actually love this movie, because like I've mentioned earlier this week, not on the podcast, but I like dark, grimy stories that trend upwards, and this is very much that kind of story.
I agree, and I think we also mentioned a few times in the podcast how, like, an ending doesn't necessarily make or break a story, an ending can make or break a story depending on how you write it and depending on how you're setting yourself up. Like Attack on Titan felt like it's very much set up on its ending. Or Game of Thrones, I think, is an even better example.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones very much is like, the ending to this is going to punctuate the point of this story, right?
Yeah, it's going to matter.
Yeah. And it failed to do so, why it kind of has now drifted into everyone's, like, back of the mind. Whereas I think in this movie, it really punctuated the point it was trying to get across at the end of this movie. Like, it's very much like the point of being a hero and being Batman isn't just inciting vengeance or punishment on the wrongdoers, but it's also saving the people that can't save themselves. And that's what really Gotham needs, is for the people that can't do anything about their situation, for someone to come in and help them get out of it.
Which is why I think like the movie also made a point where it's like that mayor lady was like, "Hey Bruce, like, would you like to talk about philanthropy at some point? You know, you have a lot of money." And it's like Batman and next movie, I think really Bruce Wayne are both going to have to step up their game and actually save the city, especially because the city's in a worse place than it started. Actually, literally at the end of the movie, hundreds dead, flooding everywhere. Like,
man,
Bruce Wayne can fix this with his money, and maybe Mr. Freeze gets in there a little bit, just freezes some of the water.
I like they've kind of set it up for like No Man's Land, which is an old comic arc for Batman, where like Gotham like literally like loses all power and electricity and is flooded and it's just a wilderness.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, that's basically what Dark Knight Rises is too. And like, but I think like the version of this Gotham would be much more interesting because it is just so shitty. And being able to like, it's also like a comeback to zero story where it's just like we're now lower than we've ever been and we now have to get back to where we were so we can keep moving.
They're in the red. They're just trying to get back to zero, Joe.
Yeah.
Some of the like Selena got a lot of pushback from our friend group. I think it's very important that she's there as one of the three revenge stories. Like you got Batman's revenge story, and then Selena and the Riddlers. And by exploring those stories and solving those issues, Batman. It makes more sense that Batman realizes what he does at the end of the movie. It's like it all culminates to that moment. I will say the Selena Batman romance was pretty underdeveloped. It's just like, hey, we're both hot.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, he sees like she's a go-getter, she's a bit of a vigilante, so they have a bit of that hobby together. But you know what I do like? There's a scene in the movie where they ride their bike for way too long. And I was like, that's the one scene I would shorten or cut. Someone turned me around on that because, like, someone pointed out that that's the one point in the movie where Batman is playing with someone. They're, like, playfully riding their bikes together, and then he has to ride away. Like, he finally gets to have some levity and play with someone, and then he has to abandon that immediately, which is pretty
This was
brutal.
just a movie where, I don't know. I'm really a sucker for movies or games or books where I'm just like, I really feel like the people making it cared.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great considering that when Robert Pattinson got announced as the next Batman, got a huge amount of pushback and everyone thought it was going to be ridiculous. And now I think he's like the coolest like action Batman we've seen on film. Like the choreography in The Dark Knight is just shit compared to this movie.
And like the Dark Knight's very gadget focused. And another cool thing, like there's moments in this movie where you see applications of like, oh, normally Batman would have a tool for this. He doesn't yet. Like there's such a cool room to grow. It really feels like they were confident that they were gonna get a second movie. And they're really setting the groundwork. They're not going too fast. Like he's not throwing batarangs yet. He just has the grapple gun and his good suit and his contact lenses. And it's gonna be cool to see his arsenal grow from there. Oh man, it makes me so excited for future movies.
And also, he's got the Batmobile. It is blue flame shit, which is all I've been missing.
So hype.
So good.
Dude,
and what's funny is like that was in the trailers, and I forgot that was there. So when it showed up again, I was like, "Oh my god, it's doing blue flames!"
The trailers didn't prepare you for all the theater also shaking. Like the sound design for the Batmobile was aces.
Yeah.
And lastly, I'll say the Riddler was excellent. I don't want to get too into it because we've been talking for a long time. I thought he was super fun. Bradley, you do a Riddler thing. You talk about him.
Man, he was just unhinged because, I don't know. Sometimes the Riddler's kind of fucking weird in Batman media.
He's still weird in this, but in a more believable way.
Yeah, he's weird, but like in a human way. I don't know. I liked it.
It's very cool that like the motivation, it's like, hey, you know us orphans that we're actually going to benefit from the money that all these criminals are benefiting from. They're not even talking about us anymore because Bruce Wayne lost his parents.
Yeah.
It's like, shit, that's a really good point they never get into.
This man, like his breakdown when he was in Arkham, I was like, whew.
It's a fantastic breakdown, and just like the good scenes from Breaking Bad, it's now a meme.
Yeah.
That good acting becomes a meme. That's just how it goes.
That's how it goes.
So I have a soft spot for the Riddler because the first ever Batman movie I watched was Batman Forever
Yeah.
with Jim Carrey as the Riddler. And that's still like my guilty pleasure movie. Like I'll just throw that on when I'm having a sick day and watch it because it just makes me happy and gooey in the inside.
Gooey.
But which like I know it's bad, but it's so ridiculously fun. Anyways, so like whenever the Riddler shows up, I always get excited because he's like one of my like favorite Batman villains because of how silly he is. And I was really worried when I was watching the trailers for this that we're gonna take the Riddler and make him just Joker B. Really?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the trailers like got me hyped, but also very worried about Batman too. I thought this was going to be too edgy, and it almost like in the beginning it almost was a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
But I'm really glad that they had him do stupid Riddler jokes and was just like a huge nerd, but also like I think what they did for this character was phenomenal and great.
the Redditor angle was so good, where he's got like his deep web followers.
Yeah.
Hey
His
guys,
500 followers. We have less followers than the Riddler.
come on guys, share the podcast with your friends,
Like, comment, subscribe,
or I'm gonna shoot up Gotham.
Yeah, but like I think I hate to say this, but like I feel like if Paul Dano died, people would be overly praising this Riddler and saying it's like a reinvention of the character, kind of like what the Joker was.
It really like Heath Ledger also killed it, but I think
Yeah.
Paul Dano has like a very comparably good performance.
No, I do too. I'm just saying that like I feel like Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight got really blown up because he died like right before the movie came out.
I wouldn't detract. I think it's genuinely very good.
I still think it's really good. I'm saying that it's not giving as much praise as it should be getting.
Give it time. I think people will just look in this movie more fondly once the trilogy's done in general. You know?
Yeah,
It's
really
telling a full story, but also very much a setup movie, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm. But I really liked how the Riddler was done. I liked how all of the characters were done really in this movie. The only one that's maybe like a bit sad is Alfred is very little in this movie, and so you don't see a lot of him.
Yeah.
But like it kind of just assumes like you should know Batman really cares for Alfred, and that's kind of it.
Well, I also like how his relationship with Alfred's kind of shitty at the start. Like, Bruce hasn't it was Alfred's life being put in danger. Really, I think rearranged things for Bruce. Which you were mentioning Robert Pattinson got slammed for this role. He's definitely my favorite Batman now. In the live screen,
He was pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
and I think his Bruce Wayne's gonna show to like really be good. I like the direction they took.
I did too. I was really confused about it until the incel Redditor scene, and then it all kind of came around as to like that dark reflection of like who Bruce is and like what he could also be seen as.
Manga and anime and fiction love to do the "we're not so different, you and I," and then this movie comes out and does it well. And like, you know what?
And you know what they didn't do? Did they say you're not so different, you and I?
No. It's like it's just cooler. We're like, so yeah, a lot of like Riddler. It's hard to say if Riddler knew who Bruce Wayne was.
I don't think he did.
A lot points to no, and some things point to yes. Because I feel like the last line he says that is to throw off the people watching through the camera. Where he's like, we almost got him, right? So he's like torturing Bruce and then dropping that so he can keep working with his partner. He thinks Bruce Wayne's his partner. He's like the brawn to his brains, which I think is super cool take. But I think the easier reading is to say that he didn't quite know.
Yeah, and I think it also leads into delusion, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Batman's my best friend. That's why he keeps on doing all this stuff because he wants to find me.
Yeah,
like obviously they get it.
Yeah. All right, Tyler, you can close us with Batman talk.
It's a Batman movie. That was my final opinion on it.
Tyler is the #1 Batman fan of the podcast, but not as much as Joe.
Yeah.
Which that's a stupid thing. Tyler's is the number one Batman
He's
fan.
number one, except for the other one.
Except for
the actual number one.
the number 0 fan. Joe played Arkham